Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. So, Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in Florida was raided on Monday, and the former U.S. president's supporters aren't taking the news well at all. In fact, they're calling for violence, specifically an armed response, and even civil war. Extremism researcher Caroline Orbueno has observed that diehard Trump fans have been openly talking on social media about how they've bought ammo amid a call to pick up arms. The term civil war is being repeated a lot on right-wing accounts. MAGA, QAnon, and far-right message boards and Telegram channels have lit up with calls for a violent response to what some see as a political attack directed by the Biden administration.
There's some people out there talking about doing some terrible things in response to this.
And I know when I say that, you picture like these jagaloons who have gathered outside of Mar-a-Lago to show solidarity.
But it is not just them.
As homegrown terrorists tweeted, the threats are popping up online and not just from fringe extremists. Republican governors, elected officials, the NRA, and influential right-wing media figures are now calling for civil war and inciting violent anti-government fervor over the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago today. Please be careful and vigilant. But for all the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who think that the FBI is somehow involved in some grand conspiracy, I'd just like to remind them of something. That the current director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, the one who would have been overseeing this warrant, was selected and appointed by President Trump.
It means there was a lot, or there wouldn't have been a warrant served.
While many Trump fans gathered outside Mar-a-Lago to show their support, others expressed their views with a more ambiguous gesture.
All of my neighbors started putting out their American flags again tonight because of the Donald Trump parade. It's honestly amazing.
The FBI raid and the New York Attorney General's office's attempts to question Trump are a crucial turning point in a long-running probe into the former president and his handling of classified government documents. The search of Trump's Florida residence also raises questions about the legal scope of the investigation, as it could extend beyond whether he took government records when he left the White House. Lawyers on TikTok have been discussing the legal implications of the raid.
Talk about how and why.
And whether that means that he can't run for president again.
First, law enforcement can generally only enter and search someone's residence if they have a search warrant.
Search warrants are issued by a judge only after law enforcement shows probable cause that evidence of a crime will be found.
Put more simply, the FBI convinced a federal judge there was evidence of a crime in Trump's house.
But what crime?
The search involved classified documents that Trump allegedly took from the White House to his Mar-a-Lago home.
As alleged, Trump took these classified materials and failed to return them, even potentially destroyed them, which is a federal crime. The maximum penalty for which is 3 years in federal prison.
The law also states that those found guilty are disqualified from ever holding office in the United States.
However, despite this clear legal language and despite some inflammatory headlines, there's actually some debate in the legal community about whether this would actually stop Trump from running for president in 2024.
Why? Well, the Constitution, which is the chief legal authority, doesn't actually prohibit convicted criminals from running for president.
Yep, that's right. There's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that actually states that a felon can't run for president. And let's be real, Trump is pretty undeterred by the raid and the ramping up of the criminal investigation against him. In fact, he keeps dropping not-so-low-key hints that he'll run for the top job again in 2024. Now, lawyers have been analyzing how the law could work in Trump's favor.
Even though 18 U.S.C. 2071, the Nixon law, says that anyone who's convicted of destroying public records can't be president, there's a question of whether that law is constitutional. A lot of legal scholars think that only the Constitution and the 14th Amendment can say who can and can't be president, not Congress. So this is going to be litigated all the way to the Supreme Court. Do you think this is going to stop Trump from running in 2024 or embolden him?
Well, some analysts believe that the criminal investigation against Trump even adds fuel to his second presidential bid. That is in line with his longtime campaign theme of being a martyr who is constantly under attack. Online, as conservatives defend Trump, with some core supporters even going so far as to claim there's an election conspiracy. Of course, liberals have once again been poking fun at him. This Twitter account joked that Trump's personal library was destroyed in the FBI raid, that both books were sadly damaged beyond repair, and he hadn't even finished coloring one in yet. And SNL writer Alex Bornstein tweeted that Trump had retained Rudy Giuliani to challenge the raid all the way up to the Supreme Courtyard by Marriott. Lol.
A grand jury in Mississippi has declined to indict this woman for causing teenager Emmett Till's life to be ended. So 70 years ago, this woman lied about this teenager, Emmett Till. And her lie caused Emmett Till to lose his life in a very horrific way. Now, people have been very upset by this and fighting for Emmett Till's justice since this happened. Well, as of today, it seems like there will never be any justice in Emmett Till's case, as a grand jury in Mississippi where this happened has declined to indict her.
Yep, so a grand jury in Mississippi chose not to indict the white woman whose harassment allegations against Emmett Till led to the 14-year-old boy's abduction and murder in 1955. The jury cited a lack of evidence despite the June discovery of an unserved arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant Dunham that accused her of kidnapping and manslaughter. The discovery of the warrant from 1955 renewed calls for her arrest and, of course, answers. Till's lynching during the Jim Crow era South galvanized the civil rights movement, and anger over the lack of any punitive action continues today. Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., Till's cousin and the last living witness to his abduction before his murder, is quoted in this tweet saying the outcome is unfortunate but predictable and that the prosecutor cannot undo hundreds of years of anti-Black systems that guaranteed those who killed him would go unpunished to this day. And this Twitter user points out that the recently signed legislation that made lynching a federal crime was named after Till, yet the person whose accusation led to Till being lynched has not been prosecuted. And Shuwaski Young, a candidate for a U.S. House seat for Mississippi, says he dreams of a day when race no longer matters in the pursuit of justice, a point of view shared by many others.
I'm disappointed, but not surprised.
But what gets me is this. So Carolyn Bryant Dunham is 88 years old, born in 1934, right? Everybody's talking about how she's so old, they don't even want to bother with trying to put her into prison because she's on her last days and everything like that, right? But y'all locked up Bill Cosby, though. Y'all made it a fact and a point to lock up Bill Cosby. He's 85 years old. They're legit 3 years apart. What makes her so special, but him not? I could tell you why, but we just gonna leave it up to the imagination.
Yes, it was England that won this year's European Championship, but since 2015, the German team has had major success at the tournament. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz attended the final match and brought up the gender pay gap problem. He said it's 2022 and men and women should be paid equally. Germany coach Martina Voss-Tecklenburg thinks the pay gap could be fixed if the association paid men less and women more to even the numbers out. And on Tuesday, Scholz met with the German Football Association in Frankfurt. He said that young girls who want to pursue sports should be encouraged with equal pay.
We also talked about the question of how we can continue to support the fact that even more girls and women are enthusiastic about football. And of course, the bonuses in such tournaments play a major role. My point of view is known. I think that's something political, unlike the salary negotiations that successful players have elsewhere. And that's why it makes sense to discuss the same bonuses there. I made the suggestion, and I am very grateful that there is a willingness to discuss this issue and to consider how this should be done in the future.
The numbers say it plain and simple. If Germany had won the European Championship, each female football player would have earned just over $60,000. Meanwhile, the men would have made over $400,000. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. The global gender pay gap is nothing new, and sports have been notorious in terms of equality. For instance, the latest stats show that the average male NBA player receives $5.3 million a year, and their female counterparts earn $130,000 a year. The 2021 Forbes list of highest paid athletes only had 2 women in the top 50, tennis players Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams. The rest, all men. And although female players bring in as much money, if not more, they still don't make as much.
Since the creation of the league, the NBA players have received up to 59% of the league's income. In comparison, the WNBA's players only received up to 21% of the league's income. The fact that women players do not receive the same percentage is discrimination. Another example is the US women's soccer team, which has exceeded the US men's soccer team both in terms of total revenue and in terms of success. And yet, they still get paid half as much as men's soccer players. Let's see it for what it is. What fuels inequality in sports is not biology, it's sexism.
And another thing that wouldn't have happened if the world wasn't so sexist, the tennis superstar Serena Williams announcing her retirement. Well, Williams says she never liked the notion of retirement, so she's put it this way. She's evolving away from her tennis career. She says she wants to grow her family and spend more time with them. And what's sexist about that? Like the 23-time Grand Slam singles champion wrote in an article for Vogue, if she was a guy, she wouldn't be writing this because she'd be out there playing and winning, while my wife was doing the physical labor of expanding our family. The 41-year-old American player says she's been reluctant to talk about leaving tennis. She says it's almost like a taboo topic that makes her cry every time it comes up. Williams says she never wanted to have to choose between tennis and a family, and even though she's sad to stop playing, she's ready to move on. The news made the headlines in many different ways, as you can imagine. Although Williams' fans say they're sad to hear that she's retiring from tennis, they're supportive of her move. In fact, social media is full of wholesome Serena Williams content, praising her past accomplishments and wishing her well. Calling her GOAT, short for the greatest of all time, tweets talk about how Williams changed the game for so many people in tennis. And another fan quoted a Nike post, "You can take the superhero out of her costume, but you can never take away her superpowers." And then people simply thanked the player for her resilience and encouragement overall. While Twitter was all good wishes, TikTok had Williams' career wrapped up in emotional videos.
My life be like, ooh, yeah, ooh. My life be like, ooh, yeah, ooh. Yeah, ooh. My life be like, yeah, ooh.
I'm Serena.
My life be like,
A vast majority of people in Turkey have internet access and use social media. And this means there is an increased threat of disinformation, campaigns, fake news, and even digital terrorism. That's according to the country's communications director, Fahrettin Altun, who was speaking at a workshop on new media and digital terrorism. Ankara recently established a center for combating disinformation, and Altun explained why it's so important for governments to respond appropriately.
Taking measures against terrorism and similar crimes that may arise in the digital world is not a choice for states or a mechanism to control societies. These measures are the responsibility of states towards their citizens.
All right, on to what's trending. Don't feel like responding to people on WhatsApp, but feel guilty for appearing online on the app? Well, ignoring those messages and ghosting people has just become a little bit easier with a new update to the popular messaging app. The security update will let you control who can see that you're online, leave groups without alerting others, prevent screenshots on view once photos, and unsend messages up to 2 days after you've sent them. These features will be rolled out this month. Honestly, for a company that claims to have their privacy in their DNA, I'm surprised it took them this long to come up with all of this. A former Twitter employee has been found guilty of spying for Saudi Arabia. A California court found that Ahmad Abu Amo was acting as an unregistered agent of the Saudi government, and he used his position in the social media company to collect the personal information of users deemed critical by Riyadh in exchange for gifts. The case also included charges of money laundering, falsifying records, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Last year, a Saudi human rights activist sued Twitter for not doing more to protect his data. That lawsuit named Abu Amo along with 2 other former employees indicted by prosecutors. Now, on to another topic that's loosely related to Twitter. You guessed it, Elon Musk. Now, it looks like the billionaire is strapped for some cash as his court battle with Twitter looms. His recent actions may have upset some Tesla shareholders.
Elon Musk has dumped another $6.9 billion worth of Tesla stock. He's now sold about $30 billion worth over the last 10 months. So what's this about? In a tweet, he basically blamed it on the Twitter deal. If Elon Musk does lose in court with Twitter, he will need to buy Twitter for the original purchase price of $44 billion, or $54.2 a share. So a Tesla shareholder asked correctly, so if the Twitter deal doesn't close, will you buy Tesla stock again? Elon Musk replied, yes. But if I was a Tesla shareholder, I would not be happy.
Kate Bush's 1985 hit Running Up That Hill has made a huge comeback thanks to the Netflix show Stranger Things. But the classic song has now gotten another, more interesting version. And this time it almost sounds like an emotional monologue from a Shakespearean play with one of the cast members from Stranger Things.
Oh, come on, darling, let me steal this moment from you now. Oh, come on, angel, come on, darling, let's exchange the experience, oh! And if I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places. I'd be running up that road, be running up that hill with no problem.
Pretty intense, huh? And with that, we've reached the end of our show. Find us on YouTube and do subscribe. See you same time tomorrow.